So I go to school. I pick up my kids that day, and the head of school says, "What would we have done? What would we do if that were here?" And I thought, okay, I have my carry permit, but I have no training. And at my women's situational awareness class, he says, in the event of a stressful situation, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. I said, I have no training. I have none. I need some training. So I am going to change my life.
Welcome to Gun Owners of America State of the Second podcast. I'm Kailey.
And I'm John, and today we're joined by Kelly. Kelly, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Can you go ahead? Let's start with a little bit about your backstory, who you are, and how you got into this.
So I grew up in Clearwater, Florida. I didn't grow up around firearms. My dad had wooden rifles around, always with the trigger lock. I moved up to Tennessee with my family after high school, got married, got a house, had a couple kids, and last summer we got a dog.
That's awesome. So you're fairly new to the Second Amendment community. What has that been like from day one, purchasing your first gun, to where you're at now?
Yeah. So I've had my carry permit since 2017. Didn't do anything with it. Felt it was important to have it back when we needed a permit in Tennessee. In 2020, my neighbor and his brother owned Tennessee Carry and said, "Hey, do you want to do a video about women's carry options?" And I said, yes. Never carried before, didn't know anything. I brought a Target belt to the videos, knew nothing. And so learned a little bit there. Then took a woman's situational awareness class in 2020 from one of the brothers' LFX training. So fast forward 3 years, still not really doing anything until March 27th, 2023, when there was a school shooting in Nashville. And for some reason, it just shook me. It hit home. I had friends there with their kids go to school there. I don't know. There was just something about it that hit me. So I go to school. I pick up my kids that day, and the head of school says, "What would we have done? What would we do if that were here?" And I thought, okay, I have my carry permit, but I have no training. And at my women's situational awareness class, he says, in the event of a stressful situation, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. I said, I have no training. I have none. I need some training. So I am going to change my life. So the day after the school shooting, I joined a gym and I joined the Armed Women of America. So I took beginner, intermediate, advanced pistol classes from the chapter leader. I took the Carry for Life class from LFX Firearms Training, and I just needed to know all the things. So I kept taking training courses, and then the lady at the chapter leader at the Armed Women of America was like, "Hey, come to our meetings. We need help with chapter leaders." So I became a chapter leader, took vehicle defense training, read this book called Sharp Women. I just needed to know all of the things. And so I started to feel more confident. And I got a holster, I got a firearm, and carried around unloaded for a while. Carried loaded, and then I finally felt confident. And so I'm carrying outside the house now. Still learning, but I am just diving in. I just had to know all of the things. And so here I am, still learning and trying to learn as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I think it's important to know when something that is a tragedy and we see these tragedies and they hit home for us. You find people go into one of two camps. very few people in the midst of tragedy stay in an apathetic state. You have those that become radically anti-gun and those who get armed. And those who get armed are so much more empowered, and they seem, just like on a surface level, happier because they know that they are not reliant upon anybody else. They can protect themselves and their family. They are able to protect themselves and their family. That was the situation that happened for me as well. When I purchased my first pistol, I was in my very first apartment off campus in college. There was a stabbing and a shooting right on the grounds or right beside of my apartment complex to the point that you could hear it. And I sat in my little 1-bedroom apartment and was like, there are 2 exits. What am I going to do if someone wants to come in? Because the little chain lock on my door and a deadbolt in a very old apartment complex, it was not fancy, very old apartment complex, that's probably not going to stop anybody if we're being really honest about it. So what am I going to do? And so I, like you, purchased a firearm and started getting the tools necessary to be confident. Now that started a whole other chain of events because I've very quickly learned that even with a carry permit, you can't carry on college campuses in Tennessee. And the amount of off limits places were many in our right off of campus. But it was the fact that I knew that I had something helped me sleep better at night. And I wanted other women to have that something. What you did for your family, what you've done for the community around you, I dare say that you've probably talked to several people who haven't owned guns after you've gone through those trainings and you felt confident. And you've probably had some conversations about why you've chosen to carry. And those conversations impact people in a way that a Facebook page or a person outside of their community ever will. The best activist we can be is an activist in our own home.
You brought up a good point. A lot of people take the class and really don't do anything with it. And then as they continue in their journey, they have an event or an epiphany that they start wanting to do more. The big takeaway that most people don't talk about is there's a lot of people who start off carrying and they're uncomfortable with it. They're uncomfortable with carrying around in the chamber. They're uncomfortable carrying it loaded. And you really hit the nail on the head where you have to build up that confidence, because putting a gun on every morning or putting a gun on every day, you're making a choice to take your own self-protection into your hands. And it's a big step to make that decision. It's a big step to make the decision to take training, to further your education. Training is not cheap, and ammo is not cheap, but to further your education after the concealed carry class, first off, I applaud you. It's a fantastic, especially taking a vehicle tactics class. Those are one of the most fun classes you could take. But the big thing is a lot of people get the permit, they don't carry, or they start off on this journey feeling not confident and not feeling like they can carry. Do you know what switched in your mind and when, where you were like, okay, now I feel confident, I feel comfortable carrying with around in the gym? Because a lot of people are worried, like, hey, will this accidentally go off? Will something happen? And we know like there are tons of safeties on firearms internally to combat that. But in the mindset, you're always got this little like cricket in the back of your head going, hey, this could happen. So when did you see that that confidence? When you were like, yes? What was that journey like?
Yeah, so I think, taking it's all such a process. Taking the class is a process, figuring out what holster you want to use, figuring out what works with your body, figuring out what firearm fits in your hand. There are lots of steps to carrying. And so there are steps beyond carrying that I guess maybe some people just, get tired of or are too intimidated by. But I think there's so much that has to be in your muscle memory. You just have to train and practice, because with anything, you don't know what to do innately. So I think dry firing, getting the steps to a draw in my muscle memory, just being comfortable with something on my body that is plastic and is foreign, it just takes time, I think. To get used to that, to get used to the steps that you need for drawing. I don't know. I just needed to practice and needed to feel confident. And so I just did it and got all the instruction I could until I felt confident. And then I didn't immediately feel like I could defend myself, but it was progress. So I think trying to make progress is all you can ask.
Now, since it is fresh in your mind, because this is all recent, and I'm going to feel old because I've been doing this for years. What was the feeling walking into the gun store for the first time and looking at the field of options, the magnitude of options out there, and the choices, and there's somebody behind the counter talking to you and trying to push you or lean you in a certain direction? What was that like for you? How did you go, okay, well, this is the one I want to carry, this is the gun I want to buy? And especially since we've talked about it before, there can be a lot of pressure from the people behind the counter to pick out a certain firearm that they prefer. So how did that play in your mind? What made you ultimately decide the gun you went with, and how was that experience?
So I went to a range and paid a rental fee and thought, I'll just try all these out, see how they feel, see what fits in my hand. A lot of the Armed Women of America meetings were like trying out other women's firearms. And I think that is a great way to see what you like, because they're not cheap. Honestly, I think that there was an event called Gals Day that this girl named Kenzie threw. And it was about a month and a half after the school shooting. And the LFX training guy was like, hey, this girl puts on this event. It's a women's one-day event, and you can go and try all these different firearms. I'm like, yes, I'm going there. So I show up. I know no one. I'm like, I'm brand new to all of this. And I got to try all of these different firearms, and I realized that there were women already doing this. Like, they had already been on the journey to explore firearms, believed in them, and I'm like, I have found my tribe. This is incredible. There are already women doing this. I'm so excited. And so that was a great way to literally put hands on firearms, see what it's like, get over the fear, get over the panic. And then it just comes down to seeing what fits on your body, seeing what you like, what you're comfortable with, and doing it. So I feel like sometimes at the gun counter you get a little push, but I don't know. I just wanted to try as many as I could. And I wanted something that had a lot of support for aftermarket things, holsters, because I wanted to try a lot of different things. So ultimately I went with the SIG 365 Hollow Sun 407 red dot because I wanted a little extra something. So it was a journey. I feel like there's so much involved in like hey, I'm not anti-gun. Maybe I'll get a gun. But there's so much, involved up to carrying that it is a little overwhelming. But you just try something and see how it goes.
This event happened. You went through everything. What's it like being welcomed into a community by a group of people? I mean, a lot of people, their journey is on their own, or maybe they're just starting off in this process, and you were able to find a group of like-minded individuals who could help you and coach you and mentor you through this process. What was that like?
The thing that I found so surprising was that the 2A community is so welcoming. They are just come and be a part. And I'm like, I don't know anything. And they're like, that's okay. And, I think that the basics are just the foundation. So you can't hear them too many times. You can't know or see the firearm safety rules too many times. And I think the main thing was that everyone was so concerned about safety. No matter where we went to an IDPA match just to see it with our kids. And, everybody's talking about, they don't know, we walk up and they don't know maybe what we know about firearms. So everybody's kind of talking about the safety things. And I think that that's maybe one thing that if you are anti-gun or on the fence, like the thing that I would want people to know is that the community is so concerned with safety, infinitely concerned with safety, double, triple checking, chamber rounds, magazines. So I just was so pleasantly surprised to know that people had gone before and women were already talking about their clothing and how you conceal best. And there were already women doing this. So they are just so welcoming. And that was reassuring and so exciting.
Yeah, that's the big thing that a lot of people don't understand is how welcoming this community can be. We want everybody to join our tribe and be part of our community. And a lot of people think that the misconception of firearms owners is that we're grumpy old people that just go, you didn't get this, so we don't want you here. But we are very welcoming, and we want people to try and learn and pass on the history and traditions of the 2A. And it's the safety thing is really huge. Gun people are probably some of the safest people out there. I mean, even from my experience, and we go to a ton of range days. Even at range days, people will walk up to you and, hey, here's the gun. It's already loaded. Be safe. Here's the safety, how to turn off the safety. Everything's pointed in a safe direction. And then as they realize that your knowledge base is a little bit higher, then they're like, okay, go ahead and here's the magazine. Go ahead and go have at it. And I think that's a testament to our group of people, because we are very cognizant of the potential dangers that could happen, but we put all these safeties in place so that way nobody gets hurt.
Yeah, it's like building a level of trust with everyone, and it's incredible.
So obviously you get into firearms. Does your husband join you on this journey? How has been the educational aspects trickle down to the rest of your family? You obviously have children in the home. What has that kind of been like?
Yeah, so my husband encouraged me to get my carry permit in 2017, and so after the school shooting, I printed out the firearms, and we have them on our refrigerator, and my kids have seen this journey and are intrigued, and so I've been trying to tell them as much as I know and can share with them, and it's really interesting to have the conversations with them, like, why do you carry? Why is that important? And so I feel like just kind of guiding them along the way has been a really cool process. They have shot some airsoft guns off our back deck, trying to get them involved, but not push it too hard. But my husband is super supportive. While I did something on his bucket list, like going to ShotShow. And so I know he could nerd out with all of the manufacturers about the minutia of their firearms. And I'm like, that's not my area of expertise yet. But he's been incredibly supportive. Yeah, it's been cool to bring our kids along with.
What was your first ShotShow like?
Oh my gosh. That was incredible. So how I ended up there is that Kenzie, the Gals Day lady, posts on her Instagram and says, does anybody in East Tennessee have any photo or video experience? I'm like, me, pick me, So she responds back later and says so what equipment do you have? What software do you use? What is your timeline like for getting back? And I'm like, well, I don't know the answers to those questions yet, but, I kind of just leveled with her. I don't have any equipment. I have very little experience. I've never edited a video, but I have an eye for it and I want to learn. I've been looking for jobs in the firearm industry to learn. I need to learn all I can. So, if you are willing to teach me, I'm willing to learn. And she says, okay, let's go. I'm like, okay, this is great. So, we start working together and she somehow doesn't fire me. And then she says, if you get really into this, you should come to ShotShow with me. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's go. So, I am, mom, wife, not a firearms girl. And I'm like, I'm going to Las Vegas for a week and I'm going to be in this massive firearms trade show. This is outside my comfort zone, but let's go. So, we get there and it was just incredible to see all of the different parts of the industry representing, instructing people about their products, innovations, what they're coming out with. It was awesome. And so, not being a gun nerd, I didn't know a lot, but, everybody is so excited to teach about their products. And so I learned a whole lot. That was a really cool experience. All of the people were amazing. I learned a lot. So it was just confirmation that people in the gun industry are pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first ShotShow and at first you walk in there and you're like, wow, this is cool. Yeah. I'm a little overwhelmed right now. Because if you've never been to ShotShow, your whole goal in life is to go to ShotShow.
Yes.
And then you go to ShotShow and your first one, you're like, wow. And this is amazing. And then you go to your next one and every year it's always, wow, this is amazing. Now I got to run around 25 miles.
Yes.
Now my feet hurt instantly.
And as you go, but that's the thing about the trade shows is you go to them, you're a little overwhelmed at first. I've seen people be so overwhelmed. I've seen people crawl up into corners because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's just a lot at once. You're taking it, it's all a bunch of visual stimulation and noises and people, and you're like, wow.
And levels and buildings.
Yeah.
Next year, Kailey's planning the map. I am bad at planning the map.
Yeah, you need a map to get around.
Yeah. We learned something very important. John is not your directions guy.
Yes. Okay.
He's very good at many other things. Maybe he is not your navigator.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you got to know your strengths and weaknesses.
I'm really good at getting meetings on the book. I'm really bad at figuring out where the meetings are at and going, okay, well, we shouldn't take the meeting in the main floor on the front of the main floor and then have to walk all the way back to the Caesars within 10 minutes.
No, you need a GPS. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, I learned that. We learned that. She learned that very quickly, and that was kind of my fault. I was like, meeting, yes. And she's like, why are we running back and forth so many times?
That is not how I have ever done that. But okay, it's good. You know, it was, I will commend John, like, for all of the crap that we give him, and we like poke at each other a lot. Like we spend a lot of time working together as a department and just as an organization, and so you kind of you poke fun. You have your moments. Had it not been for him, like, actually booking meetings and like being in that mind space for me this last year, we would have not had a full roster of meetings. My life had been really crazy for the last couple years. I had twins with heart conditions. And so I was not out of the fight or flight mode yet. Yeah. But we were home and everything had kind of settled out by the time ShotShow had happened. But you're booking ShotShow meetings in like June, July, August.
Yes.
And so I was very thankful, but then I got there and I was like, well, what are you? You are not a type A person, my dude.
Well, the funny part about ShotShow, and as you'll learn, as you grow in this industry and you start making friends, or more friends and building the community, it's really funny because we would walk and we'd turn a corner and somebody would say hi to me. And we turn another corner and somebody say hi. And Kailey just started like looking at me and making fun. She goes, you know everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, I've been doing this for a long time. But also but that's just the nature of this industry and this community, is that you meet friends at trade shows, and that's probably the one time a year you get to see everybody, or you get to see them twice a year or once and you normally talk, and we've talked about this before, where you talk online or you talk on the phone or you text back and forth. But when you go to ShotShow or an industry event, it's like you've never skipped a beat. It's like you've been friends for 10 years. And it's just funny because as we turn a corner, somebody would like say hi, or we turn another corner and somebody would say hi. And she's like, you know too many people. Why are all these people saying hi to you? And I'm like, it's just, as you grow in this, and I encourage anybody to really deep dive into this industry and grow, you just become friends with so many people. And we've barely touched on this, but the firearms industry, there's a lot of movement. A lot of people will be at one company, and then by ShotShow, you pull up your map or you start reaching out to people and you find out they're at another company, or you're learning that they're at another company. And that gives you a lot of opportunities because they're your friends, but hey, you might lose an opportunity with company A, but now you have an opportunity with company B, and now you're building relationships with new companies every year. And the companies, even like you said, they want to tell you about their product. They want to talk. They want to sit there. They want you to listen. And that is one of the cool parts about this industry. And you talked about how you were looking for a job in this industry. What was that experience like? Because it can be a daunting task, because it looks from the outside a very large industry, but it's very, very small, really.
Yeah, I found that it was small and close-knit in random ways. And I found I wanted to connect as many people as I could, just to, I don't know, have more of a network. I feel like there were a lot of instructors kind of on their own. And I, went to Gals and found all these women. I'm like, hey, we need to band together. And I don't know. I think that I needed something with creativity, just being like an artist. And so I didn't necessarily want to work in an indoor range. I didn't necessarily want to be behind a desk trying to sell firearms. So with Kenzie and photography and videography and firearms, it was like a beautiful melding of skills. But yeah, everybody kind of has each instructor has their own kind of flavor. But there's this baseline of, hey, we want to protect our rights. We are pro 2A, and all of the details and differences related to that are like just kind of fun talking points. But like, we are all one. And so what are you doing in the industry? Like, what are you doing, and how can we join with you?
It's funny that you said that there's different levels to this industry. It really is. And there's, you've got instructors, then you have brick and mortar stores, then you have gun ranges and brick and mortar stores, then you have online retailers, and then content creators and writers and bloggers, and everybody's there's kind of different levels, and people are kind of in their own groups, or they've got their own flavor of things, like you said. But then you go to SHOT and everybody's like a big melting pot. And that's where you start. There's this. Did you get a chance to go to the infamous Circle Bar?
Oh, yes.
So there is a bar at the Venetian. We, as the industry, we call it the Circle Bar. And a lot of people I've had experience with bosses going, why do you go to the Circle Bar? It's silly. Nothing. A lot of business gets done around that silly little bar in the middle of the Venetian floor, and a lot of people, as it's a gathering point, and a lot of people gather there, and we come together, and that's where a lot of good networking and connections happen. As silly as it sounds, but we're all there together, and you're walking around the show. It's big.
Massive.
You can't hit everybody, but you may run into them in a hallway or the Circle Bar. You can start a conversation, and we touched on this previously, but a lot of things in the firearms industry, I think the firearms industry is the only industry left that a lot of things get done by a handshake, and a lot of things gets done by just talking. And it's sad to say that has kind of gone away from under industries, but with us, because we're so close knit, is like, hey, I really love your product. Let's do something. Oh yeah, here's my card. Let's do this. I think we can do X, Y, and Z. Call me 2 weeks after ShotShow. Always 2 weeks, because we all have to recover. And then you shake hands, and then business gets done. And it's crazy to think that if something as simple as a handshake still gets business done in our industry.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to the trust. And like, if you believe that the Second Amendment is good or worth it, there's like a fundamental commonality, and then you get to explore everything on top of that you differ in. But it's like a touch point, and you're like kind of immediately friends, and then you get to know each other at ShotShow and keep in touch throughout the year.
Yeah, one of the things that I love to see is people from different walks of life join the firearms industry, because I do believe that it's important that the industry reflect the community at large. And, not everyone grows up around firearms. Not everyone has the opportunity to spend thousands of dollars on training. Not everyone lives in a populated enough area to support, gun stores and ranges that have, a huge demo area, or that have a ton of options. And that's okay. And I love when new people come into the industry that don't have, 10, 20 years of experience, that, maybe have a different viewpoint on things. Because once you get in, you're able to help us reach new demographics and meet needs of the firearms industry that sometimes can get overlooked. I mean, we talk about, the idea that the industry for a while had the concept of shrink it and pink it in order to reach women. That's changing because of the amount of women in the industry that are able to advocate for what it is that women are really looking for. And companies are listening to that feedback and providing some fantastic innovations in the space to meet those needs. You have companies like EAA and the Tip Up. I mean, that's just a fantastic option if you are, someone with arthritis, or if it's hard for you to maybe use other firearms. like there are options available, and people are willing to design those options, even if it just fits a small niche to fit the needs of the firearms community. And then the flip side of that is when people's needs are met, it's easier to have that conversation of you need to get armed. You need to protect yourself. You need to be your own first responder. You need to advocate for the Second Amendment. You need to take that level of personal responsibility that you feel to own a firearm is the same level of personal responsibility you need to feel to get training and to advocate for the use of those firearms. And so it's all a journey, it's all a progression, but one area feeds the next. And I love seeing all of the new gun owners that we've been seeing from the COVID era and beyond. And I think people are a little nervous right now because the numbers are pre 2017 as far as the NICS system is concerned, and people aren't buying as expensive guns as they were. Those are real problems in the industry, but at least people are still purchasing guns, and they're advocating for their rights in a way that we've never seen before. And I think that's going to continue to grow, and there'll be other spikes. I don't think any of us are advocating for another pandemic to boost sales, right?
No, thank you.
no one wants that. But it's important that we advocate for our rights, that we're seeing the push towards constitutional carry, and we're adding more and more and more states to that list. And there are work to be done in all of those states, including this one. But it's important that we start practicing what we preach and not divorcing the politics from the Second Amendment. I don't want to say it like that. Not divorce the politics from the firearms, because there is a real threat to the fact that politicians want to limit the size of the magazine. They want to limit your options, your availability. I mean, down to what is allowed to be imported. They are controlling what you have the ability to defend yourself with. And it isn't because one gun is more dangerous than the other. It isn't that adding a pistol brace somehow makes a firearm more dangerous. It's not those things. It is not. The argument that it's about safety, is an inch deep and a mile wide. It's a good talking point, but it's not reality. And it is an infringement on a natural right that is constitutionally protected. And so it's important that we advocate not only for good training, but we advocate for a restoration of the Second Amendment right in general.
I couldn't agree more. Well said.
Yeah, so I think not coming from the firearms industry and coming from even a friend group and a social group that didn't talk about firearms, maybe was anti-firearms, I think I just approach it with reverence, because I think the conversation is so important, and that, if you are anti-gun, it's like this otherworldly, very polarizing subject that only gets talked about and publicized as like, you're a crazy gun person. And so that's why I think the conversation is so important. And I'm trying to, talk to other moms, just normal women, about why it might be important to carry a firearm. Like, I think your body can't go where your mind has not gone. Like, I think that there's so much emotion with firearms, and especially maybe with moms or women. And so if you can just do a thought experiment about what you would do in the safety of your own home, what would you do if someone came to do you grave harm, like, or your kid? Like, You are safe, but go there in your mind. What would you do? And so I think that that is a bridge for people who are maybe not gun people to say, I don't know what I would do. Well, here is an option. Instruct yourself, carry a firearm like it's an equalizer. It makes you as powerful as the bad guy. Like there is nothing else. I mean, maybe years of jujitsu. I don't know. Like, I don't want to be as close to the bad guy with a knife. Like, I want space, and firearms are an equalizer. And so I think that that is just an important thing. I think that people who are maybe not firearms people don't let themselves go there mentally to say, what would I do? And so the conversation, I think, is so important. And I love just trying to gently bring up the subject so that it don't turn people off. But I just think think the conversation is so important.
Yeah, I agree. And the issue that I see often is the media has done such a good job of equalizing the gun owner and the criminal as one. When the criminals are criminals because they break the law, because they intend harm, because they're not going to their local gun store and buying and purchasing a firearm. They are in and of themselves not law abiding. They are in and of themselves malicious. And for the media to mischaracterize gun owners and try to say, well, it's the gun that's bad. It's the tool that's bad. You don't have a right to a firearm of today's capacity, or a military grade weapon. You need to have a musket. It's horrible how they've shaped the narrative, because I really do believe that most people that are anti-gunners, if they actually sat down and thought about it, they would see how misleaded they have been by a mainstream media pushing an agenda, because they probably know more gun owners than they realize. They probably know significantly more gun owners than they realize. They're probably beside them in everyday life and have no concept. I think everyone thinks we walk around in tactical pants.
Yes.
And we've got nods on 24/7 and we're just like ready for combat at any given moment. And like that is a persona that is not accurate.
Yeah.
I feel called out right now.
I have never seen you in tactical pants.
No, not
as a Jew.
I had to wear tactical when I worked at the gun range. That was part of our uniform, was wearing tactical pants. And after I left, I'm like, I'm never wearing tactical pants again. Like, I feel so weird walking around in tactical pants. It's not even funny.
It's funny you mentioned criminals, because Kenzie and I were talking about the fact that I know in the wake of the Covenant School shooting, there has been the anti-gun push, and Kenzie was like, there are no loopholes in the law. Like, the loopholes are the criminals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just so much emotion, and all of the gun laws sound good, I guess, as action, but they are tools, and their power. Like, whenever you hear about a new gun law, just like replace firearm with power. Like, they're trying to take away our power.
One of the things that's so frustrating is the fact that language is so important. And, we talk about mainstream media, we talk about all of these things. If you were to go and poll, let's say 75% of America, we could even go as far as 100%, and say, would you want your representative to vote for something called the Safer Community Act? what logical person reading the title would be like, no, I want my community less safe? But that's exactly what the gun control measures in that law do. They make us less safe, but they're so cunning with their language, and they're so decisive with what they do and what they say, that if you're just reading a headline, you could be very upset with your representative for not voting for something. But in reality, it's actually hurting your right. And, we see this, multiple times in multiple different ways. You hear the term, red flag law, and you're like, okay, well, that can make rational sense. But that is a made up term. It's a gun confiscation order. It's not only dealing with your Second Amendment right, it's dealing with your Fourth Amendment right. But if you don't know that, or if you just listen to the wording,
it sounds good.
It sounds good. And it's hard to blame someone who is working a full-time job, who has a family, who has other things going on, for not knowing every single thing and every single law and every single wordsmith opportunity that they create, because it's a full-time job. I work in it. And you can ask me what's going on in a state, and I'm like, I'll get back to you, because it is impossible for one person to have that much knowledge at one given time. Because it's, we have 50 states, all with their own state legislature going on. You have the federal government. You have what's going on in the courts. At one given time, all of them can be doing something for better or for worse. And so I feel bad, because sometimes I think people are disappointed when they're like, hey, what are you guys doing in Michigan? And I'm like, regarding what?
Which one? Yes.
Because there's 9 bills just there. And so I'm going to need some specifics. Are we talking executive action? Are we talking lawsuits? Are we talking what's in the House? Are we talking what's in the Senate?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Can you clarify?
Yeah.
I never want them to be disappointed with my knowledge base, but I promise I can find the answer. Yeah. I'll text our regional rep, and I'm like, hey, what's going on in Michigan? And he'll probably ask the same question, with which one?
Yes. Yeah. But, it's also confusing.
But, if you have a question, write in. If you have a question, DM us. We have people that know the answer. I just might not be the person I'm not God, and I'm also not Google. I will fail you.
Wait, what? It's funny, because we get this all the time. As media faces of GOA, I get messages all the time. Hey, what's going on in this state? Hold on. Let me text our state and local affair director, see if he knows. Chris, you're amazing. Thank you, Chris. And then as you go on, you're just like, okay, wait, okay, what about this one? What about that one? And it's just hard to keep, like Kailey said, it's hard to keep a thought on this. I want to touch on Kaylee's point. People say that the firearms industry is all tactical pants, and the narrative is always that we're old white people, right? But the demographic in the last 10 years has changed. We have more women in the industry. We have more minorities in the industry. We have more communities. We saw in Hartford, Connecticut, communities getting together and becoming armed and cleaning up the city. And I'd love seeing that. A lot of people now have realized that taking your safety into your own hands or being part of this community is just widespread and going above the narrative that the media is pushing, and seeing through the anti-gunners lobbying efforts to make it the demonizing the gun and not the person who uses it illegally. The funniest thing I've ever seen, and it's funny because I was living in the city at the point, is the Columbus NBC affiliate was like, this is how powerful an AR-15 is, and they shoot at a watermelon with a shotgun. Clearly don't know what an AR-15 is, but they put this narrative out because if anybody knows anything about shotguns, they can be devastating to a soft target, and it gives them that narrative like, well, look at how this watermelon explodes when it hits with an AR-15. For the people that are staunchly anti-gun and don't know any better, that looks scary. But to all of us in the 2A community, we're like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Why would you do this? And that's the issue is, how do we as a community educate and teach people that the misinformation that's coming out is not true, and that there are tons of gun laws on the books already that are not being followed by criminals. Criminals will do what criminals want to do, and they will find a gun in any way possible. And it is us as the law-abiding citizens, as we've alluded to, that are affected by criminals' intentions. I mean, we've seen in Australia that they've done a massive gun ban, and everybody knows about how strict it is. But there was just a knife attack. A person who has ill intent is going to carry out an act in any way possible. And more laws on the books is not going to fix that.
And more to your point, more gun laws on the books are also going to hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to make our communities less safe. You know, mass murders. Where do most mass murders take place? In soft targets. And the reality is so different from the messaging that's being put out. And I want nothing more than to be able to protect my kids. Don't come after them. Like they're off limits, right? And that's how every American feels. That's how every parent feels. And so when you're sending kids into a soft target that you know is a soft target, it hurts your soul a little bit, because you're looking statistically at this and you're like, this isn't right. This isn't right. Politicians shouldn't have more security than our children.
How are our politicians protected? How are the celebrities protected? Why aren't our children protected? They're so vulnerable.
Well, you brought up a great point. We've seen in the past that when these events happen, the people who are carrying out these ill intent do a lot of research on their targets. And there's been times where even in their manifesto, well, I'm not doing that. There's too much armed security, or there's this, that speaks volumes of why are we not protecting our children? Why are we not protecting our future? And I applaud the state of Tennessee. As of earlier this week, it is now on Governor Lee's desk that they are offering to arm the teachers and give them, the necessary tools to not be a soft target anymore.
Yeah, I think it's making forward progress. No bill's perfect. No state is perfect, but it is doing the next right thing. It is making sure that we are restoring our Second Amendment right. It's making sure that we are moving in the right direction, because, the thing that most people overlook is that, we talk about the Second Amendment and those who are anti-gun and those who are pro-gun. Regardless of where you are on that spectrum, you have a Second Amendment right. You have the right to protect and defend yourself. It is a right that is constantly reaffirmed, and it's not granted by the government. And so even if you don't realize that you're losing it, you're losing it. And it isn't it isn't an us against them. It is a protection of a natural right. Well, wow, that got really heavy towards the end. But it was so great having this conversation with you. Feel free to plug social media and where people can find you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been great. I love the conversation and would love to keep it going. I have a tiny Instagram following of my platform, Kelly Carries, and I would love to talk with anybody about how women can arm themselves, how to get involved. I love just starting the conversation. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for being on. We appreciate it. Guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notification. Leave a 5-star review on all podcasting hosts. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.